Hello, very good afternoon. My name is Dr. Ishan Bhatting, and previously we have been talking about CSS and how we use CSS to design and create web pages. Today, basically, we will learn how you design a 3-column layout web page which is also responsive. Okay, we will be seeing that how you create a web page that is responsive and that basically behaves and changes its order whenever it's resized or viewed on a different screen size. Okay, so and if you are here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe my channel. Previously we have been talking about creating a simple web page layout with a header and a basic column structure. So we will continue from there and we will create our new web page as we go along. So once you are here, this is the basic structure that of course I've already created. Again, in this page basically you get a simple web page layout. We have an HTML tag, we have a head tag with a link attribute to our CSS file, we have a body tag. Within this body we have created a division, h1 for header layout, and then division for all 4 basic links. So if I save this page, we should be able to see, if I save this page, okay, we should be able to see the layout of this page. If I go somewhere, where is it, my layout? Why I'm not getting this layout? I think this is it. Yeah, so this is my basic page that we have available. Okay, so there's nothing fancy to it. I don't know what happened. This is simple web page with a header layout and 4 links to it. All these 4 links have been put inside a division tag. Should be as simple as that. Once you create this simple page, okay, now again for this what I will be doing further is that I will be creating columns as well. So let me create a column. So for column we will be going into division and create a division. Okay, within this division we will create another division. Now what I'm basically trying to do is that we have one division for header, one division for our links, then third division that will define the body of the content. Okay, so within that body we will have further 3 column divisions. So it's like a box within a box. So we will have one main box, within that we will have 3 column box layout. So here you see that we have one main layout. This would be our, for example, main data content area where the entire content is given. Within this content we want to divide that content further into 3 columns or 4 columns, or depending on what you want to do. So here basically we will say this is 1, 2 and 3 column structure. Okay, so 3 columns inside that particular data. However, we can give this name is equal, for example we can say this can be my class content, okay, and this can be division class, for example column. Okay, COL, if I spell correctly, UMN. Oh, okay, so this can be one thing. Similarly, I can copy this class code, Control C, and paste it here, and so I can paste it here. So now basically we have one main content area. Within that main content area we have 3 more divisions. Okay, I will show you how we work with that, and we have given them different class names. If I come back here, we have one division for a header data. In this division again I name it class is equal to, for example, HER header, and obviously we need to put this in quotation marks, so let me put that under quotation. So this becomes a separate division, and then this division again I need to separate, and for example I give it NAV. Okay, so a very simple HTML that specifically contains few basic structure to it, majorly in terms of header and header layout, or for example in this case now I can say 3 column data and header layout. Okay, so this is 3 column header and data layout. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 links. Let's just increase couple of more links to it. So for example we have 5, 6 links to it. Okay, and I will just make this as 5 and let's just say 6 links. Control S, and we have 6 links to it. So we have created a simple what we refer to in terms of our HTML page. How do we create this, and how do we convert this simple HTML into a beautiful web page containing columns? Make it very simple. Okay, so we create a new file and we call it a CSS file, and within this CSS file basically we create the content, and we create the design content, okay, the data for designing our web page. In order to do that, basically for example we start with body tag. Okay, and I want to set the body for example can be BSCKGROUN, the ground dash color can be, for example, LIGHT, light gray. Okay, so this can be a light gray, and usually I set the margin to 0, and that should do the trick. So basically that means that my CSS margins start right from the border. Then press Control S, and let me save this CSS into our folder. And where is that particular folder? I think it's web engineering codes. Here we go. And CSS 3 column dot CSS. Okay, so this is my CSS file. As soon as we save, color pops back in, and it just helps out. Usually we save this file initially, because then it helps and gives us tips, and so we don't have to type everything in manually. Okay, so we start working with CSS. So first thing we did was we created a background color for it. However, you would notice that there is no background color to it. Maybe I've done something wrong, so let me make it, for example, BL black. Okay, let's just make it prominent. So if I set it to black, still I don't see any black color on my page. That's because if I go back into my 3-column layout web page, okay, I have not linked properly the CSS file. Again, CSS is an external CSS, so you need to link it within your head tag. Within your head tag, you need to write a link tag, relation, that's a style sheet, type, that's the CSS, and hyperlink reference to that particular file. In our case, we would write CSS 3-column dot CSS. So this is my CSS. As soon as you enter the data, save it, and the output is lively fed on our system. So we go back into 3-column CSS. Now just give it a nice color. For example, this can be LIGHT light coral, light cyan, and that should do the trick. Okay, so we get a light cyan color, and because its margins are set to 0, now they are all margins are set to 0. Once we are working with CSS, sometimes this helps me a lot, that you have set the margin to 0 for your entire web content, and then now you know that your body, basically for the body specifically, is 0. So you know the body starts from 0, and then you control each component and each segment within your HTML from that 0 margin. Once this is set, now we will, for example, use a header. So I can have a div.head header. Okay, remember we had created a div header class, this one. So first we need to work with that. So we start with this 3-column header, and I need to set this header. So when I come here, I have a 3 header. To set the header, for example, we start with the background color. So I can say background color should be, for example, let's just make it light gray, LIGHT light, light GREY. Okay, semicolon. So header is set to light gray. Then we set padding. Basically padding is supposed to be the space after the margin. So margin is set to 0. So I need to ensure that there is a little bit padding to the field. So as soon as you start giving padding, you would note that within your Chrome now you have some margins available, and you can control that area, that how much is the space here. After the padding, basically I have to ensure that the text alignment is also set to be center. So this is my center area. As simple as that. Obviously we can work with the fonts, we can work with the text color, we can do lots of other features as well. So we can specify, for example, text, or simply just give it color, I guess, color and colon, and this can be, for example, blue, I guess, BLUE, blue. And if I hit save, why is color not there? Oh, okay. See, now this is what happens commonly with me, specifically if you are using auto type in text in these features. There's a semicolon missing, so make sure you give a semicolon, and now we have a blue color. In fact, I don't like this blue, so if I go back here, I can say bluevalent, or maybe this color. Okay, so this color is okay. So we have set the header. Now let's move to the what we call the links. For links, again, because we had created a division, so we set divisions, NAV for navigation. Again, if you're not sure, come back here. Make sure you give the name of that particular class. Okay, or whatever name is here, you can choose within that. Now, again, we use class-based structure. This basically means that there's a div with a class name nav. Okay, if I come back here, there's a div with a class nav. There's a div with a class header. There's a div with a class content. Basically, in CSS, it sets the properties of tags. But if you have multiple tags and you want to control different properties for each tag, we use classes to segregate and create like a group. Okay, so this is a different group, this is a different group, this is a different group, or in CSS terms, different class, different class, different class. Okay, we have been talking about this previously, but again, sometimes it just gets confusing if you're here for the first time. So what we do is we have told this that there's a div tag with a navigation class name. Now we need to set the properties for that. Okay, the first property that we're going to set for this is that overflow. We set that previously as well, and we want to ensure that overflow is set to hidden. Means that the content that are overflowed are basically not visible and are hidden, and the color for this div tag can be, for example, dark gray. I think dark gray, even more darker gray. I don't know where's the dark gray. This is dark gray. No, this is not proper dark gray. Usually what then I can do is I can use a hexadecimal, few numbers I remember clearly. Yeah, see, this is like proper dark gray. So if I double click here, it should pop up and give me a dark gray. Here we go. So we have a dark gray color here. So what we did now is we set a navigation bar with a navigation of dark gray, and make sure that its contents are hidden. So if anything is overflowing, the contents are visible. So that's what we do for navigation bar. That's it. Now next step, we control the links. So to control the links, we use a tag, and we give it the brackets. Okay, now if you set an a tag here, that means that you're controlling every single anchor tag here. In our case, we have not specified class to the anchor. So if I go back here, you see that there is no class to the anchor tag. We can do that. However, because these anchors are within a subclass of navigation, what we can do is we can come here and we can specify that kindly control the nav with a. Okay, now basically we would tell this system that under this navigation we have an anchor tag, and we want to set the properties for that. So if I go back here, this basically means that we have a div with a class navigation. Under this class there are various different components. So we tell the same thing to our CSS, that under the navigation there is something called anchor, and you basically use that as a class, right? So basically anchor is using the parent's navigation class, simple as that. Okay, so in other words, now we don't need to specify classes for anchor. We can use the parent class tags as a sub enter class. We use the parent class parent tags class name. Okay, so we use the parent tags class name for the child. Yeah, that's how basically it goes. Okay, so anchor is basically using the navigation, and within anchor now we need to specify the proper link. So very quickly, the first thing is the float. Okay, we specify float as, for example, left and semicolon. So if I press S, it's already on the left. If I go into and make sure I give it right, you would see that now links are on the right side. If I similarly give it center, CENTER, I believe, press enter, the links would be on center. Okay, here we go. So in our case we would just specify left, and it should be on the left. Then we make sure that the display is set to block, because we are going to use block based display. The color should be, for example, white, right? So I can use white, 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 so the link appear in white color. Similarly, the text alignment can be center. Okay, and the center means it will be center of the block. So because we have set the display to block, now the text will be centered to its blocks. Obviously their links are completely connected together, so in order to make sure there's a gap between each of these, we will use padding. Now we have been talked about padding in previous lecture. If you have attended my previous lectures or not, you can go into the lecture number 3 or 4, I think, talks about padding on CSS. Just check it out. Okay, so padding basically means space after the margins. Okay, so here we can set the space to be, for example, 10 pixels from top and bottom, and for example 10 pixels from left and right. So as soon as you give, you can see this, there's a nice behavior to it. You can play with this, so it can be like 15 from top and bottom to 15 depending on how big the menu you want to make it appear. This can be even smaller or bigger. For example, I can set it to 12 by 15 or 12 by 20, so the links appear broad and big, and then I can change the font size and font color and whatnot of that as well. Okay, so padding basically has added the spaces for it. Now there's an underline beneath each link which we don't like, so basically for that we use a text decoration. You specify text decoration to be none. Since it is set to none, what will happen now, the links is disappear. So if I go back here, and now you can see this, we have a 3-column header and link are available very nicely. Finally, what we need to do now is we need to ensure that when my cursor moves over these links, basically the link color changes, so that we know that my cursor is over it. So again we do is .navigation class. Under that we have an anchor hover. Okay, this basically means that now once my cursor is hovered around this particular link, what should happen? Okay, as simple as that. For that, basically we use background color. Again, we want the background color to change. So in our case, the background color can be, for example, light white, LIGHT, light green, light gray. I want a very light white floral white, maybe that should do the trick. Okay, floral white, and with this floral white I can have something like a color. So since the background will become white, the text will also be invisible to read, right? So what we can set is, we can set the color to, for example, black. I guess should do the trick, simple as that. So now once we are here, the link becomes active. Okay, that's why I have these panels available. You can see the output right there and then. So now the links are active and our code is basically working perfectly fine. Okay, next step is working with the 3-column structure. So we go back into our column and now we have our column structure to work with. Okay, so the column class is set to be what we call content, and then within that content we have a class. Okay, so what we do is, now we go back into my CSS. Here we create the class for our content. So what we say is div.content and bracket start bracket close. The basic code can be, for example, the background color. I can specify the background color can be aqua antiquity. Let me just change it to that so that there's a little bit difference between the background. I think spelling is correct. content content. Okay, so div content background color becomes simply antiquate white, just a very subtle change in that color. Then let's just move to another div dot what we call column. Okay, bracket start bracket close. There we go. Okay, this is the column structure. Now we need to specify certain settings for that. So for a column layout, basically what you need to do is you just come here and you specify attributes such as, for example, float. We start with that, and we need to ensure that the float is supposed to be left, and yeah, let me just use it left for now. Okay, and what else I can change? Let me specify width. Obviously that's the most important thing, because we have created 3 columns in our HTML. We need to specify the width of each column. Now here the width we will be specifying in terms of percentage. So for example, what I simply do is, if I open the calculator, and where is my calculator? Here it is. So for example, we have 100% width and we want to create a 3-column structure. So what we do is we divide it with 3. Okay, once we divide 100 with 3, we get 33.33. You might have seen this number floating around in many tutorials. This is how basically we achieve it. For example, if you are going to create a 4-column structure, so again 100 divided by 4 and we get an even 25 number. Okay, so 25. If you are going to use the 4-column structure for whatever purpose, for a larger website, you might need the width to be set to 25. In our case, 33.30%. So this is sometimes I usually used to find confusing, why 33.33, but then just a simple math, you divide 100 with 33, 100 with 3, you get 33.33, right? Because 3-column structure, that's how it goes. So we have that simple maths available, and we divide that structure. Okay, now again, this basically means that every column would be just jointly structured. So for example, if I give it a background color, and that background color can be more prominent, in other case let me just give it a green, semicolon, space, save it, and if I go into HTML, save it, column div content. Why this is not visible? Have I made some mistake somewhere? Is there any mistake? Content background, hang on, let me just change this color to, for example, again red. Control S. See this color is not changing for whatever purpose. Why not? If I go back into HTML, Control S, I've saved it, and I can give lorem lpsm lipsym spam. I don't know what the word actually is. I always forget the spelling, but it's lorem. If I write lorem and press tab, oh, why it's not coming on? Okay, let me just give a dummy text. This is column column 1. Control S. This is column 1. Okay, because there is no content inside it, that's why we was not getting any output. This is column 2. Control S. And then this is, for example, column 3. Control S. So we get 3 columns. We come back here and we get a 3-column green layout. Why this div it's not giving me a normal red color? I don't know why. Why? Should be actually. Anyway, let's just move forward and see what's happening here. So what we have now is 333% column, because each column has the same color, so we're not getting it. We might give it, for example, a border. We might give it a border of, for example, 24 pixels solid. So now you see the border appearing more prominently. Okay, and because we have this like that, see this, it's still not responsive. Okay, so keep that in mind. We will be talking about responsive websites later on. So we have a 24 pixels worth of border. Now remember, if you do that, the width basically is colliding with 24 pixel border. So for example, if this is set to 24, then still it's adding 24 pixel border all around that component. That's why the size is increased and these components have moved forward. So for example, if I specify border as 0, now you see all 3 columns appearing correctly. But if you specify, for example, 1 pixel, now 1 pixel has added additional pixels around that particular border, which basically increases the width from 33%. So if I reduce this 33%, now maybe I can adjust the 3 columns here properly. Okay, so anyway, so I have to maybe make this smaller and adjust the mathematics correctly, and here we go. So we have a small border solid, and we can make it, for example, light gray, LIGHT, light GRAY, gray. Okay, and semicolon. So we have a very light gray border available into our setup. So that's done. So we have a 3 column structure. You put the data in, as simple as it goes. Obviously the data is very small. I supposed to put what we call the ipsum shipsum lorem. I don't know what exactly what the word was. Let me copy paste that content somewhere. I had that. This is column 1, and give me BR, and then I can place the code here. Okay, and then I come back here. In fact, what I can do here is, if I just maximize this, see what I've done here is class 1, this is column 1. So let me just make it H1 and Control X, go back into column 1, paste it. Okay, so this is column 1, and let me make this big, and I can copy this entire content, and I can come back here, Control V, this is column 2, and I can come back here and Control V, this is column 3. Okay, so we have div tag. Within div tag we have basically H1. Then I basically, what I can do is I can copy paste the dummy text lorem, and I can paste it here, and then similarly that dummy text can go after the heading as well. And now if I go back into my browser, you should see the structure better. Okay, so this is column 1, this is column 2, this is column 3, all have a green color, which is yuck. So what I do is, let me just come back to it. Where is this gone? Where is this gone? Where is this gone? Let me bring it back here, and let me just adjust it to this point, and like that. Okay, so let's go back into my CSS and go back into color. Let's just make this from green color to something nice, and this can be, for example, LIGHT, light gray. Sometimes I like it. Yeah, okay, so light gray with a color, and obviously border is like too much of a border. I can give it 1 pixel. Instead of a light gray, I can give it white lines. Okay, and WHITE, white. Why is that twice? Control S, that should do the trick. Okay, so we have 3 column structures available for us. Now basically what we need to do is we need to go back into our code, and I think this should do the trick for our column. I think one more thing we can do is padding, because I felt that it's very close to each other. So we can add a padding feature, and the padding can be, for example, 10 pixels. Yes, so now we have a padding available, and again the width is basically destroying it, so we need to do a little bit of math again. The width is 32% for each column. However, we have added a border. I think let me just remove the border, and then we have a 10 pixel. This should do the trick. Width, float left, light gray background color, and we have a padding of 10 pixels. Why is it not coming on? See, this is where it's getting distorted. So if I have a full column, now it's okay, but as soon as I start decreasing the size, it's not responding to my website. So I need to ensure that this is basically responsive and it works in a better manner. However, column I can make it 31 and I can reduce it, but for now I just leave it to. Okay, so what we do is, for example, I've set it to 30, 32. Let me play around with this value that we have a 31% of the width of this entire area, and the remaining 2.1% are basically adjusted with the padding factor. Okay, so if you add the padding and of all around these three objects, it should be equivalent. So if I resize this geometry, you see that we have got 3 column structure back to us. Okay, that's perfectly done, but however still it's not fully responsive. So now let's make this website responsive very quickly so that it behaves nicely and it does the right thing. So let me write a comment here, responsive layout code. Okay, this is just a simple trick that we use to make the websites responsive. Another trick, in fact, there is a simple way of doing it. Okay, so the first thing is we write media, okay, and then screen and maximum dash w, sorry, max dash width, width, colon, for example we can say colon 600 pixels depending on your screen size, and then we start the block and close the block. Okay, now what we've done here is we have told that the media is supposed to be screen and the maximum width of that is 600 pixels. Okay, so you need to adjust with respect to that. Then within this, basically we need to say that what happens if this basically runs out of it. So here we specify column, okay, column, column, bracket start, bracket close. So basically within this block of code for the media, we have specified those classes that are supposed to be affected with respect to this change in size of screen. Okay, so as soon as the screen size changes, the content are basically going to update, specifically how those contents are going to update in terms of class. So we specify that this column is supposed to be edited with respect to width, and that width can be, for example, 100%. Okay, now what this basically means is that if the screen size is 600%, use width 100%, and as the screen size changes, it would automatically adjust the code. This is a simple trick, simple code. There are, I've found 2-3 other ways as well, but I found this one using more conveniently, more easily, that once you do that, it should be more accurately done. Okay, yeah, I think let's just test this. So if I go back here, we have a 3 column structure, and if I come back here, you would see that it is trying to adjust. What's happening? Blah blah blah. Okay, so as soon as it goes back up, it tries to adjust and come back into its structure. Okay, to a certain extent. So the links are basically also following down, the column width is actually following down, and it's working to a certain way in a proper manner. Okay, one other thing we do sometimes is I use a static, and maybe I can say box dash sizing. Border box should do the trick. There you go, there you go. That was what I'm missing. Okay, okay, and now if I come back here, you see the website is basically and should be adjusted with respect to the content. Okay, and then if I come back here, 33 div column is 33.33. now it should be adjusted formally. There we go. Okay, now what I did was I came here and I used a static. Static basically is a wildcard. It basically means refer to everything. Okay, so it basically refers to every single thing in our code. Okay, so the border boxing or box sizing, sorry, basically what it does is that it organizes your entire website into a structured box way. And if I remove this again, you can see this what's happening. If I control X, you see that it's getting unstructured and boxes are basically placed in a different size. So it is possible that based on the content, the size of the box may be different. We can have 2-3 different sizes of boxes, which may just differ from minor issues due to the padding size and everything. So we have width set to 33 as a default, and we set the padding to 10%. However, when we come back to our structure, still it is not creating in a formal way. So you can see this box is not coming away because there is a minor padding issues, I guess, and in order to correct it, it takes a lot of time and creates a problem. So what we do is we come back to our code, and at the top we give something called static.box sizing :box border. What this basically means that it organizes everything inside a box. Now remember, in previous classes we had talked about the box model for CSS. CSS uses a box model with respect to your border of your pages, your margin, your border of your content, and then the padding area, and then the content itself. So it uses a box order. Once you use this thing, basically this is like a universal thing. Now everything fits inside it, and now all the columns are basically equal size within the box area, and you can see this, they are in particular shape. Finally, we just need to verify again that why the sizing. See this, if I come here, it's still in 3-column structure. It is not going into a responsive mode. Okay, it's not going into responsive mode. By responsive mode, I mean that if it is in a small screen size, it should be actually single column. Okay, so now it should be 1 column, 2 column, 3 column in a row form, not in this column manner. So it's not working. So we have to find that second mistake here. So if I come back into my code, this is a simple structure that we use for creating a responsive website. We use a media, screen, and percentage width and height. Okay. What media means that we are referring, or we're talking about various different medias that are supposed to be used, and within that media, within that media we specify the screen size and the maximum width of that screen. For example, 600 pixels usually works for me, and then column width is 100%. Now this means that whenever the screen sizes is changing, basically you change this particular class and make sure that width actually is maintained 100%. We have said that, and then when again we come back here, I have noticed that it's still not working. So first thing is we come back here, we make sure we give a box, Control S, save it. As soon as you save it, so that problem of box not being in a correct form is automatically removed. So this actually helps a lot. You would find that this code on lots of different websites as well, people tend to use it. Basically means that it corrects your box layout, and all the box that are unordered due to different margin and padding size are now again structured automatically. So it's just it does a magic job for us. Okay, so hopefully it's just more easy to understand, and sometimes we use it to ensure that all content fit perfectly. However, still the problem remains. Now I actually went through the code again and again. I don't see what's different. So we have an A link, we have a hover, we have a content area, we have a column area. The column width is supposed to be 33%, so 33% of the entire screen. Means entire screen divided 3 times, so each has a 33% of whatever screen size is being visible. The padding is 10%. We can increase that 10-15%. For example, if I do 50, now that's a little too much. I think 15 was good, 1.5 or like 10 should be like okay. So whatever size you change, you get an output here, and you see that it's working fine. However, still it is not going into responsive mode. What I can do. If I go into layout, see my web code again, let me just increase the file its size. Okay, as you can see, we have everything in a perfect order. Div tags and code. Okay, let's just do one thing. Sometimes content column. If I have column and if I remove div, just use column here, and content after, Control S. Fantastic, it did it. See, it's 3 column and it goes back. It's 3 column, it go. Hang on. Let me check this again. So what I did is basically I just removed the div in front of the content, div, Control S, and it's okay. So if I come back here, it's worked. So where was the mistake? So if I come back into column and use it as div, okay, so we found the problem. So if I remove the div from this column, we get a responsive layout. But if you fix it with a div, it's fixed. Now I actually have never seen this problem before. So if I remove div, we get a responsive website. But if I write div, there's no more responsive website. Okay, anybody knows this problem? If you have found that new solution, can you let me know, because I don't know what the problem is. Basically what we do is, whenever we create a class, we give the tag name dot and we give the column name. However, you can just remove the tag name as well. So basically it means it's an open class, column dot column, meaning that whichever column or whichever class is named column, this tag would be applied on it. So it doesn't have to be div, it can be even a paragraph, it can even be, for example, an anchor tag or a tag or image tags within column. So any tag that have the same column as a class name is now applied here. So this is generally a general class name without being specified for a particular tag. So whatever tag has this column would now be applied. So this column class name can be for a div, this column name can be, for example, for a h1, for a paragraph, for a tag, whatever the class name is. Okay, so now it basically has applied on universal. So the problem at this point is that if you specify it for div, the responsive is gone, but if you remove the div, now the responsive is back on, probably because we have also used column here as well. So for example, let me try one more thing. If I use div here and if I also use div here, so I get it now. Okay, basically it's an issue within the responsive, it matches the dot column with the dot column. So if you specify div dot column here, then you also need to specify div dot column here. If you just specify dot column here, then you need to be specific, because if it's supposed to be div dot column, this is a generalized, means it can be now used by any tag, so it's a general CSS. Okay, but when you make it specific, now it's a specific, it is only for divisions that have column class name, so it's for specific. If you make it specific here in your responsive, you also again need to make it specific. If you make it general here, okay, and then you make sure you make it general here as well. Okay, so that's how basically things go. So now we have a responsive website that responds to a smaller screen size or a larger screen size with a particular column and area. Okay, hopefully it's explainably easy and it should be do the job, and you should understand how things are moving. And if any problem, do let me know. I think let me just complete it with what we call a header or footer. So if I come back into the code, before this let me create another division and add a class. This can be, for example, footer footer, and close this. Okay, so here we go. We have a class, a division footer, and maybe, for example, we can add a paragraph inside this. This is footer TUTO, a tutorial by Dr. okay, and myself. Okay, so I gave my name at the footer, and this is what we get. So if I come back here, this is footer, I think I've misspelled it. This is footer tutorial, TUTORIAL, tutorial. I think if I give it a BR, there we go. So we have a BR tag here. This is a footer BR, and obviously in order to write the CSS for this footer, we need to go into our CSS and come back into our, for example, media responsiveness. After that, anywhere you prefer, footer. Okay, so now I've not specified the class as a tag name. Any class having any tag having a class footer will we will be basically using it. So I can say, for example, first of all, background color, usually let me change it to dark gray, I guess. Hashtag, sorry, we use a hash, and I can use F1 I think that should do the trick. Okay, if I'm correct, what is this format? F1 is black. Dark gray, what's dark gray? Dark gray is supposed to be dark GST light blue, maybe black. Just use it as a black. Okay, and then I can specify semicolon. Color is equal to, for example, WHITE white, semicolon. So there's a black background with a white color. Text alignment can be, for example, center, so it appears at the center. What else can we do with this thing? You can obviously add some padding to it just to ensure that it's has some padding feature, so it appears with little bit of space around it. It's not fixed at its borders. Or you can also say padding 0, so it appears absolutely stuck with the area. So you can see here it starts from the border. If you specify, for example, 10 px, now there's a space between it. So depending on how basically you are going to use this thing, okay, and that should do your trick. So now we have a footer, we have a 3-column structure, and if you resize it, if I resize it, you can see that it goes back into 1 column. So we have a responsive website that responds to our screen size as well as header and footer. Hopefully this is easy to learn and understand. In future I might make another tutorial to explain this box sizing, and one more tutorial if you want, or making this responsive, but this is the basic code that we use. Okay, hopefully it's understandable. Do let me know your feedback in comments within the comment, and I will try to respond quickly. Thank you very much. This is Dr. John Burdi signing off.